Good. All right, I'd like to call this March 7th, 2022 Sylvania Board of Education meeting to order. Jeff, would you call the roll?
Certainly. Ms. Huffman?
Here.
Mrs. Conklin?
Here.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Here.
Mr. Feller?
Here.
Mrs. Johnson?
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Motley, we're with you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to March 7th already. It's amazing how time is flying. I think I said last week we are approaching the near end part of our third quarter here in our school district. I want to begin by saying congratulations to our Northview boys basketball team, varsity basketball team. On March 4th, they locked in a win against Whitmer. Yay! It's third time a charm, from what I understand. A third time is a charm. We were here 2 years ago, and in speaking with Mrs. McDonald, which is Coach McDonald's wife, who's principal over at Arbor Hills, they had their fingers and toes crossed all day about this third time was going to be a winner, and it did. We made it. So we clinched the district final. And this is the first time for Northview in the history of Northview High School. So we're very proud of our young men. The next game is Wednesday against Lima Senior at 7 p.m. at the University of Toledo. So this is big time basketball. Really excited for our kids and their families. This is a memory they will take with them forever. Such an exciting moment. Also, central office administrators along with program directors and building principals continue to assess our staffing needs at this time of the school year, both in the classroom as well as at our administrative levels. We want to be responsive to meeting the needs of our students and our staff. As our population continues to grow, it also becomes more diverse, and it's continuing to become more diverse. For example, just a little bit of data. At the beginning of the 2020-2021 school year, we had 140 ESL students in our district. Currently, we have 197 ESL students, and that number continues to grow. At administrative levels, as these numbers increase, so do the needs increase, as the level of involvement and the responsibility of our building administrators expand. This includes anything from being an instructional leader that's accountable for ESL services, wraparound services, including intervention, special education. We had a preschool presentation last week I think it was last week or the week before, from Laura Lowe, not to mention the new teacher evaluation system. So just a lot going on in education and what we need to do. And I think even more, perhaps that's really significant, is the ongoing discovery and really confirmation that there is a need for students to have more social emotional supports. We've started down that path with Beyond Healthcare. The more and more I get out to speak with our principals and our building staff in regards to what those needs look like, we're seeing more and more behaviors and social emotional needs of our children, and how are we going to go about meeting those needs and doing it systemically. If it's issues with anxiety or coming to school or wondering what's going to happen at school, there's just a lot going on with kids. We're seeing, especially in our youngest students, some challenges in learning how to work together, how to play together, how to cooperate, because some of them have chosen not to be in school for legitimate reasons, family decisions, but when they come back to school, they have some skills that are lacking that we're having to shore up. So looking at how we can do a better job at doing that, and that's going to look at probably increasing some personnel and some support. And the good thing is we have ESSER funds that can help us do that. On a final note, I've always promised, well, not a final note, I have another positive, but second to the final note, a COVID update. Guys, at this juncture, it really appears that COVID is in the rearview mirror. I don't want to jinx it too much, but we continue to believe that the pandemic is in our rearview mirror, and along with many other districts, we continue to work through some of the unprecedented outcomes, some of which I've just discussed: the social emotional needs, anxiety issues for our students, the stress on staff to close the academic gap due to a loss of instruction, and to do that with so many groups of children during the school day. But we are moving forward and maintaining our momentum. I think it's important that we acknowledge that we're continuing to address the needs of our students and beyond the classroom, our families, and have those wraparound services for our students and families so they can be more successful and have a more positive school experience. Sometimes there's things that happen at home that come into the classroom. And then there's some things that just from frustration in the classroom, if you're not reading on grade level, that frustration transfers to the home environment and how we can help support parents learn how to help their children be successful. And then each of you received tonight in your envelope a copy of the Sylvania Advantage, just a highlight that I want to share in my superintendent's report this evening. I was looking through this newspaper, which you know is local. There are over 25 articles about Sylvania students, either an honors, some type of accolade, recognition, albeit sports or academics or artwork, over 25 different or pictures or stories about our own kids. And I thank the Sylvania Advantage for being such a good partner of our schools to highlight the student success that we see here each and every day. We appreciate that support, and I know our families do too, but it just really, once again, is an exclamation point on the great programs we have here in Sylvania schools and the great kids we have in our building. So that concludes my superintendent's report.
Great.
I have a question. Maybe I'll ask Tim. When are we doing like staffing meetings? Are you gonna do those with board members, like 2 by 2 and 1?
How did we do them last year? I wasn't
2 by
directly involved.
So-
After the decisions were on the table,
When the recommendations are
Yeah.
ready, like
Yeah,
not
when
before
we're-
it's finalized, because you don't want us coming at you
we can do-
smacking you after you've already
we can
decided.
do 2 by 2 by 1. I know Josh is going to be highly newly engaged in
Ooh.
that, so that makes sense.
I'm gonna be first.
Highly newly.
Highly, newly, highly. Yeah, because we can't have more than 3, so we
Right,
do
right,
2,
so
1, yeah.
2, 2, 1,
Yep.
I just wanna make sure that
Yeah,
those
it was in the
don't,
superintendent's report. I remember reading it. I think our last staffing proposal is a week from today
It
with high
is.
school. So
Next
probably sometime next week we'll meet with you guys.
okay, so maybe like get somebody, get those scheduled so
Yep.
that we can pick times, because I don't want us to be forgotten and then we're in here yelling at Josh.
Absolutely. We'll get those. We'll get them. I'll have Tanya reach out tomorrow or
Okay.
mid this week for
All
you
right,
guys to
thanks.
schedule. Yep.
That's all I had.
Thank you.
All right, now we're at the first opportunity for public participation for agenda items, and seeing none, we have an ESSER presentation by Ms. Sanford. Are you using the board?
Yes.
Or you're not.
152.
Just gotta warm up.
I see it.
While it's warming up, I can introduce myself. I'm Julie Sanford. I have had the privilege of working for this district for 29 years. I serve as the Director of Student Data and Assessment and am in charge of the federal programming for the district. So tonight, we're going to focus on our ESSER funds and just make sure that everyone's aware of these federal supports that are in place for us. So the goal tonight is just to define ESSER, talk through ESSER 1 and ESSER 2, and then introduce the board to ARP ESSER, which we like to call ESSER 3. We'll talk about the purpose, we'll talk about the plans that we have, and also the expenditures that we've had so far. So for those who are unfamiliar, ESSER stands for the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. They were put in place, federal grants put in place to help schools with the impact of the coronavirus that's had in the past and it continues to have. And some of those long-term effects that Dr. Motley was talking about earlier. So with ESSER 1, we received almost $700,000. It came to us, it could have been applied as early as March of 2020, but we actually did our application and started using the funds in July of 2020. At that point, Lisa was reporting
that there was a little over $1 million cut from our state budget. And so we applied a good portion of those first funds to some counseling staff just to kind of get some funds back into, to compensate for that loss. We also did some sanitation supplies and equipment, and we were responsible for working with our non-public partners and providing equitable service for them. It was mostly supplies and equipment as well. Then we received ESSER 2, which we were able to start accessing last January. ESSER 2, we did our summer programming last year with ESSER 2. We did our SALO program for last year as well. There were a number of instructional softwares and instructional supplies that we've covered through ESSER 2. Safety and sanitation has been also a big thing, just buying more equipment and making sure that we have the best technologies to deal with the virus. We did the brand new phone system with our ESSER 2, and some of those transportation upgrades that you have approved throughout the last year, we've also taken from ESSER 2. So the routing software, the capability of doing the attendance on the buses, and all the equipment that has been needed to go along with that. We are still working on spending our ESSER 2 as we speak, and we'll talk a little bit with numbers in a minute. All right, so ARP ESSER is ESSER 3. It's titled the American Rescue Plan, and the feds put in some additional requirements with those funds that came in. They wanted to make sure that we had a safe return to in-person learning for our students, and then they wanted us to be able to have a services plan, a continuity of services plan moving forward. So our ESSER 3 is $6.4 million. So with ESSER 3, we had some additional pieces and parts, and one of those things that we were required to do was to gather our stakeholders, conduct a needs assessment, and to kind of develop our plans for ESSER 3. So last year around this time, we started working with our district administrators, our building administrators. Our buildings worked with teachers and parents, gathering input. We also put together a public hearing both for our general federal programs, our regular grants that come in, as well as we did an extra one for ESSER ARP. And then we also formed an ESSER district committee that has met once and will be meeting again soon. So we're gathering input, and within all of that input and that data that we've looked at, we identified 3 areas of focus for our ESSER 3. The first one being our academic needs and addressing the learning loss by all of the inconsistencies within that the coronavirus has presented. Also, mental health and wellness is a huge area for us as well, and continuity of services, which speaks to the operations side of how we're doing business. So our plans for ESSER 3 are just getting started. We really haven't accessed very many funds there yet, but we do have plans and pieces in place that I'd like to talk through with you. Now, these plans could be adjusted as we do our needs assessment this year. We work with our district and our buildings and our stakeholders. Some of the things that are on this list may end up sliding off, or some might become more intense. So we're still in that process of planning and revising. So for academic supports, we will be able to continue to provide summer programming through ESSER 3 this summer and next. We've talked with our curriculum departments about curriculum maps and pacing guides, and we've budgeted for some collaboration time for teachers for them to be able to work together on those projects. Our current intervention plans are being funded through ESSER 3, and that could continue into the future years as well. We will do 21-22 and 22-23 instructional software and supplies. with the one-to-one initiative really taking off throughout COVID times, there's become like a reliance on a number of instructional softwares. And all of those pieces and parts are expensive, and that we're very fortunate to have these funds to be able to work through those with that. We also will be doing some staffing general fund relief. Transformational teaching PD was done with our ESSER funds, and we're working on our Wilson Level 1 training for teachers that will help students with the dyslexia, as well as just that screening and being able to help students with phonics support. On the mental health and wellness side, as you know, we have contracted services with Beyond Healthcare. That is coming from our ESSER funds. We have the ability to bring in additional behavioral specialists and consultants. We have a goal of conscious discipline, professional development training for our staff to help support our students better with social emotional health on a daily basis. Our PBIS positive supports, behavioral supports materials will be coming out of ESSER, and the ACE training that was conducted in the fall was covered through ESSER, and additional trainings could be applied here as well. On the operations side, we want to make sure that we have a continuity of services, and we're using this opportunity to upgrade and update as many things as we can, things like security cameras, updates in equipment. We're looking at new equipment for district events, whether that's video streaming equipment or any other equipment that might help us better communicate with our families. Safety and sanitation supplies, of course, stay on that list, as well as equipment. Fire doors and alarms, upgrading and making sure that all of our buildings are ready in the case of any emergency, and then any strategic plan supports that we may need moving forward with services. So let's look at the numbers here a little bit. We are still working on spending our ESSER 2 funds. So we've already spent $2.3 million from ESSER 2. There's an additional $200,000 that has been encumbered, and there's approximately $277,000 yet to be spent for ESSER 2. For ESSER 3, we've already expended $137,000. There's another $250,000 encumbered, and we still have $5.9 million to spend with ESSER 3. And ESSER 3 is with us the longest, so the availability periods, kind of stretch out. So I don't think we're behind at this point, because we still have 2 more years with ESSER 3. So what are our next steps? As I mentioned, we'll be working with our buildings to assess our needs at this time. We'll also work with our stakeholder groups, parents, community members, our district committee. We will do some of that through public hearings. Every year for federal programming, we do a parent survey just to kind of gain some input, and then any input that we gather, we can use in our planning for our federal programs. And that committee that I mentioned will be reconvening in April 7th, as a matter of fact. So what questions can I ask, or can I help to answer tonight?
How long do we have to spend the rest of that ESSER 2 money?
ESSER 2, I believe, is 2023, September of 23, and then ESSER 3 is September of 24. So a little bit of time left. Yes.
Who makes up the ESSER committee?
The ESSER committee, we have 5 teachers, we have 2 board members, and 3 administrators. So it's a 10-person committee. Greg and Tammy are serving as board members, and then Jeff and Veronica and I believe, or is it Tim?
I'm like, I didn't know. Did we decide who? Did you guys?
Financial.
It's the financial committee.
Financial committee.
Well, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Because I
I'm
didn't know I
like,
was on an ESSER committee.
I was
It's
We
like,
got
finance
together
committee.
one time last summer, right when we were gaining the funds.
Well, that's
and
something
started
they
to do our
may
plans.
not have been the finance.
I think we were, though,
Were you?
yeah. How much is contemplated to be used to offset the personnel costs from the general fund?
So right now, we have ESSER 3 budgeted, I would say like a third, and a third for academics, mental health.
Between the three
supports.
areas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And is there a specific amount that's contemplated to offset general fund personnel costs?
We have not done that yet. With Jeff just coming on board, that's like one of the things that we'll be working on, but we're not there yet.
One of the things that I've shared with Julie and Tim and with Jeff is my desire to offset the money that we've spent on extra duty pay, which is money that we have spent to cover classes when we split up a class between 3 teachers and you may get $37 an hour to take those extra students, or if you have to cover a class and you lose your planning period. That's one place where our general fund money has been going, and I really want to use, because a lot of our teacher absences were really related to isolation or quarantine. And that's why we had difficulty with having the appropriate number of subs to cover absences. So
So we could do permanent building subs out of that,
absolutely.
out of that too.
Permanent building, the extra duty pay for covering classes, planning periods. To me, that's in a direct correlation of the burden of COVID, and that will offset what we have had to spend in our general fund. Now, in talking with Jeff, we can, even though that has already been encumbered, we can take these dollars and pay ourselves back to make ourselves whole. But I'm interested, and I know we have some work to do to calculate those numbers. What's that dollar point? I don't know if it's 800,000. I don't know if it's 1.2 million. I don't know if it's 300,000, but that's where we need to capture, and working with HR, getting a data collection of who the teachers are, where were they, how much does it cost, and then giving that amount and doing some reconciling the books. And we will have that number for you in the future so that you know.
Would you mind emailing those slides to us?
I wouldn't mind at all.
Thank
I
you.
will, yes.
Thank you very much.
I was trying to take notes on my advantage, but
Thank
they're kind of messy.
I'll get that to you.
Well, one of the reasons we thought it was important to bring it here tonight, because we hear about ESSER and what other people are doing and what it looks like. We also have made a promise to our committee members that we want to make sure we follow up with that promise. We want to support social and emotional health of our students and staff. And that's one of the promises we made. I think when you two were with us last year and we met, that was the number one component in which our OPC and SEA staff members said they wanted to focus on. So I think we started to take some steps in that direction, but we have more steps to take.
Anything else I can do for you?
What time is our meeting on the 7th?
4 o'clock? I'll
Thank
put something out tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Julie.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Julie. Putting it in my calendar right now.
Okay, next on the agenda, Dr. Motley, we're with you.
Thank you, sir.
5.1.
I recommend approval of item 5.1, which is the acceptance of gifts. We have a donation of $200 worth of books to Timberstone's Honors English classes from Laura Blair in honor of her mother.
I move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 5.2 is a recommendation for various overnight field trips for our students here in Sylvania schools. The first you will note is Northview High School teachers will accompany 23 students to the Rockets for School competition in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Our parents will be providing transportation for these students. The Northview head coach will also for, speech and debate, the tournament that will take place in Louisville, Kentucky, will accompany 4 students to the National Speech and Debate Tournament. At this point in time, we know of 4 students. My understanding is that there is another opportunity this month where other students may be identified, so we may be amending that particular field trip with a number of students. But as of today, we have 4. It should be noted that these students will be traveling by airplane to Louisville, Kentucky. And we also have 2 additional field trips for our first robotics competition with our Northview and Southview students. Our high school counselor, Crystal Burnworth, will accompany these students. One is for an opportunity and competition at the California University of Pennsylvania, as well as another one at the Credit One Arena in Chicago, Illinois. And both of those field trips, our parents will be providing transportation for the students to compete.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, call the roll.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend item 5.3, an interim assistant principal at McCord Junior High. Ms. Tracy Hertz has been so kind to be able to commit to working every day through the end of the school year, and we would like to appoint her as interim principal at McCord Junior High.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Discussion? All right,
Is she a current employee?
She has served as a substitute employee for us this school year. She's been at different buildings. I know she's been at Central Trail.
She's been an administrative sub in a handful of our buildings, so she has administrative.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, call the roll.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you. In regard to human resources, on a consent agenda basis, I recommend items 6.1 through 6.6. The first 6.1 is a retirement of Joan McCarthy at Maplewood. I learned a little bit more about Joan this week. She has had 19 years of service in Sylvania schools, but I believe has well over 35 years or close to 35 years in education. John Doobie and I were comparing notes. And so we hate to see her go, but she definitely has earned the opportunity to enjoy retirement and wake up when she wants to each and every morning. We also, as Jill snickers at that one, maybe when all the philanthropic things call, you also have to show up for those too, right? Also, we have a license resignation of Catherine McDonough, who is a kindergarten teacher at Highland. She's been with us 9 years, and she is moving on to do some other things. We have item 6.3, which includes extra duty pay for a few of our teachers in regards to ESL meetings, and also developing new STEM curriculum during the month of June. We have a number of licensed substitute teachers. We're up by 3. We like to see that. So we continue to hire substitute teachers. We have 3 supplemental positions for the rest of this school year, for the 2021 school year, as noted. And we have also added a new supplemental position for the Northview head football coach, Greg Silm. And you'll see that for his position, that is for the 22-23 school year. And again, item 6.7 is on a consent agenda basis. I recommend approval.
I'll move approval on a consent agenda basis, items 6.1 through 6.6.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, call the roll.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you. On a consent agenda basis, I recommend items 7.1 through 7.8. 7.1 is the approval of an athletic volunteer for track and field. Item 7.2, we have folks who are shifting around some positions in the district. You'll see as noted, as well as a new contracted employee for custodian. She started actually, I believe, through the process potentially of our job fair. And I happened to run into her when I tweeted one night, and she and a couple other custodians were out salting after the it wasn't the Cat's Meow, it was the orchestra concert, I do believe. And they were out salting and working, so she's a new contracted employee. So I recommend approval there. Also, we have a couple of more athletic volunteers one more. Am I going backwards? I'm going backwards, sorry here. 7.3 are new classified hires. These are district substitutes. Item 7.4, we are recommending approval for additional hours to support our summer school. This person will serve, Sandra will serve as our school attendance secretary. Item 7.5, we recommend the approval of Barb Lundgren to come back and serve as a substitute in human resources. One thing we have learned is the value of historical knowledge, and Barb has been so kind to come in and help us when we have someone absent from working in the Human Capital Department. So thank you, Barb. Item 7.6, we have one classified resignation. Item 7.7 are classified supplemental positions for the 21-22 school year. And then again, we have one lifeguard, I believe, Molly Malone, who's going to be working with us this year, subject to board approval. And item 7.9 is a recommendation for a consent agenda approval.
I'll move approval on a consent agenda basis, items 7.1 through 7.8.
I'll second. Quick question. Why do we have supplemental positions that are both?
I asked this before.
So
I still don't get it.
So you have individuals that are in OPSI. They are under a different category under OPSI.
Okay.
And if you're not a licensed person, so let's say I own my own business and I want to come in and be an assistant coach. You would be under the classified because you are
Okay.
not a licensed individual.
Gotcha.
Even
Okay.
though they have
But you're not
people
actually
activity
classified
permits,
either.
right? But we
Yeah,
throw them
right.
in there under that same classified umbrella. But the folks that you see under certified are certified teachers that are in our district.
And I said, we've never done it that way as long as I've been here. That they've always just all
All
been
gone
in
together?
all been in the same place because they're supplemental.
And also, yeah. This is one way I think too, and I don't want to put Jeff on the spot. I know we started this, I've only known it to be this way, so I don't know
And
if
I've
this
only
is
known it
something
to be
that,
the other way.
way.
Yeah.
So we've been doing it. When I arrived, I don't know how that worked with previous HR. I can ask Jane to see if she did it that way. But when I came on board, I don't know where it started to switch, where it was teased
I
out.
only noticed it, I don't know, a couple months ago.
Oh, it's been like that, I think, longer than that. As long as I remember reading the agendas, I could do some research.
I think it's been inconsistent.
Okay. That could be too. We've had a little bit of changeover, but you know what? Josh is going to fix that. We are now going to watch Josh turn red. We are going to work on consistency, trust
And let's
me.
see if Josh can make us all happy with the solution.
No pressure.
I can do either way. Which way would you prefer?
I don't know. The right way.
We'll explore what that looks like. We can look at other agendas. And actually, since we have Jeff's expertise, we have Adam's expertise, and we have Cajun's expertise, we have 3 different districts that
So
work
much
with
expertise.
us. Right? So much expertise. We have 3 voices at the table that we can ask and see how they do it in their districts and compare. And I can go back and check
Well,
our
I
old
would,
agendas.
yeah, I mean, I guess I would say just because they do it one way in some districts and other, so.
If we've been inconsistent,
He
though, we
does it
don't know
this
what
way in
we've
his
done it.
district, you do it this way in your district, which one's right?
Well, and if we've been inconsistent in our own district, we don't know which one is
And
right.
I don't think for the 12 years I've been sitting here, we've been in
Really?
this, it's always been supplementals or just supplementals, wherever they are on here.
Okay.
They're all together.
I can check into
Well, they
that.
don't
We can look
necessarily
at that.
need to be with either. I mean, they could just be their own thing.
There
They
is
don't have to be
that,
licensed
because
or
I think you're
classified.
right, I mean, okay,
It's
I
like
get it,
Lisa
they're not
Tucker on here.
licensed.
She's a
Mhm.
teacher at Toledo Public, so she's not classified either.
Right.
Yeah, she's licensed, she's a
supplemental.
licensed teacher,
Yeah.
right, so.
Josh
Not
is
here.
taking notes. He's got it.
So what are you gonna do, Josh?
I'm gonna tap into some expertise.
Jane.
I like it.
Whatever we do, we'll be consistent and stick with it, so we'll make a rash sound decision.
Well, I'd like it to make sense, like if you're looking at the supplementals on the agenda, I
Right.
don't wanna have to jump to 2 places, I like them all right in one spot to look at.
So
Yeah,
I'm
because
gonna
I
go
go
back
down and
and
read the
look.
names and sometimes I'm like, wait, didn't I just see that name up there? And then I gotta go, like, it just makes
And
sense
it's
to
so
me that
hard.
they're all in the same place. I don't want them in 2 places.
We can explore that. We can do that. I
Yeah, I
can't do
don't
it
wanna do
tonight.
it.
I can't do it tonight, though. I can't fix it right here, right now, but it's on the list. It's on the
Well, I'm
list.
very disappointed that you can't
Can't do
fix
it
it
like
right
right
here.
now. I can move some
I'm
stuff.
kidding. We already approved it, you're good.
Oh, that's true.
I don't think we did.
No, we
Oh,
didn't.
we
We
didn't.
voted
Oh, see, I
it.
can play around with it. I have the editing
I
now.
motioned it already.
It's discussion.
It's
We
discussion.
approved the first set of
Oh, yeah,
we
it's
did.
first set, yeah.
We approved half of
And I
it.
intend to approve it. I'm just,
I'm not sure how I moved it, but I'm not sure.
Oh, my.
All right, any other discussion?
All under license. They
All right, call the roll.
I didn't hear that.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
And Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
All right, I would like to offer for approval, item 8.1 on the agenda, approval to the addendum to the superintendent's contract. And just a reminder, this is the amendment to the existing annuity in Dr. Motley's contract that we discussed in executive.
I'll move.
Go ahead. Anybody?
I'll move to approve.
We have a
I'll second.
All right, discussion? All right, call the roll.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
Thank you.
And now we're at board committee reports. Kim, you want to start?
I don't think I have anything new. We had a SSPO meeting this past week, and we had a really great presentation from our committee that handles our ALICE training and our active shooter readiness. So that was a nice presentation. I would encourage anyone who's listening or in our watching later to participate in SSPO. They've got a really great agenda on the lineup and over the school year, and it's a really great way to kind of keep track of what's going on. I think the next presentation will be the I think, is it the treasurer or is it operations? Anyway, it's up on their Facebook page, and they do a good job of kind of teaching people how the district works. So I think that's all I have this month.
And they meet the first Friday of the month, right?
Yes, first Friday at noon here, and they air it on Facebook Live. So
Okay.
while it's going on, so.
Julie?
No, we just gave a report last week.
She
I don't
did.
know.
All right, I don't have anything new.
I don't have anything new.
Tammy?
I don't have anything.
All right, this is the second opportunity for public participation for non-agenda items.
Talk about my,
Sure.
do that now or should we?
I think we have second, let's see, I would like to suggest you tag in before the second participation.
Which is now.
He has an announcement.
Yeah.
Now,
No.
Now?
you're
Okay.
on.
Yeah.
I don't want everybody to go home with some
It's
really
always scary when someone says he has an announcement. We're all like,
good feelings.
It's a positive announcement. I should have,
The news is so depressing, so this is going to be one
it's
positive.
gonna be good. Thank you. Do you have one?
no.
I sent this out, yesterday. It's, sometimes hard to read on your computers, but I'm not gonna, this is an overall view of the real estate collection. Like I said at the last meeting, just so happened to be so recent, that, I can't wait. Well, it came in this Friday, and I couldn't send it out Friday because there were some questions I had, some really anomalies that was going on. The overall picture is our real estate collection is up 6% over a year ago, and you can see that increase is 4.2 million. Okay, in the middle column there, the increase is 6%, 4.2 million. The forecast that we had in there was, this is how I would probably have done it too. I always like to come in higher, so we're almost $1 million higher than our forecast, because again, you just don't know. You don't want to be short, but it's always good when it comes in. But there's some things that it just stood out that was. It's all great, it's all great news, but I needed to understand what happened. So if you look, I took a green highlighter there, starting with delinquencies. So when we collect our taxes, they break it between residential, agriculture, public utility, and they actually showed, when we talked about that last board meeting, how, if you pay it late, we get it the next collection. You always have that. So some people will miss the cutoff, and then they'll pay, or businesses might be struggling, and then they pay at the next, and it's called delinquency collection. Well, we brought in 827,000. If you look under February of 22 under delinquencies, you see we brought in 827,000. But if you go 2 cells over, a year ago it was a minus 1.7. Oh, that doesn't make sense. We had a minus delinquency collection. And again, you might remember.
Julie.
No, I was going to call you by your Ms. Huffman.
Or
but-
is Julie?
You might remember, Julie, why that was. So I, of course, didn't. So I emailed the auditor. This is really interesting. The main reason was the exemption from Toledo Hospital going back to tax year 2015 that was granted in 2020 for these 2 parcels that actually refunded Toledo Hospital $5.5 million.
I remember.
Remember that? Is that
Vaguely know what
Okay.
you're saying.
So why that's important
is for Adam or for anyone going, as we go forward, you can't just count on that big swing, all this, we got this big swing this year because of because it was hugely behind last year. So anytime, that's why it's good to not just look at the overall number, let's go a little deeper and see. And so the other thing that stood out was, how would a public utility, is your Columbia Gas, your, all those, Toledo Edison and all those things, those companies most always pay their bill because, they have the money, they're not usually going out of business. So, but we collected $261,000. So again, this Matt at Lucas County is really good, always gets back with you right away. That was a parcel that should have been added back in 2016. It was a public utility that should have been added in 2016. They just found out and whatever. Again, when it's money coming our way, I'm not going to question it that much. But so again, you can't necessarily count on that either. But those are kind of huge numbers for just kind of anomalies that happen. But as you can see, it all works to our favor. So an extra $200,000 there. There's a big swing in our delinquency because of what happened with Toledo Hospital. So all in all, it's just nothing but good news. So when we do the forecast in May, we'll use these updated numbers, so we'll be up 914,000, and then we'll have to forecast, then the crystal ball needs to come out. We were in a triennial update. I think we talked about that. Lucas County was in every 3 years as either an update, triennial update, or a physical reappraisal where they look at every individual parcel in our district. This was not that. This is more of a neighborhood adjustment. Like Julie, if you had a house sell on your lane, your value, if that was a high, your value would go up on a neighborhood basis. That's what a triennial does. They don't have the resources to do every single, so they do that once every 6 years. So part of our increase, I'm sure, was we've had some, as property values are, really high. And we'd be trying to buy a house right now. It'd be good to sell one.
We gotta find someplace to go.
So as I said, this is the kind of thing that I'm just like, so excited to share with Adam because, with everything else, with all the other challenges, and with all, gas prices and all that, at least this money's been collected. It's not just on a piece of paper, it's actually in our checking account. So it's done. So the major part of our 5-year forecast is now known. Now we get to work on how we're going to use that money effectively with the students, use the ESSER money that Julie also talked about tonight, and do some great things. So again, this is good news. This is good
Excellent.
news.
Thank you.
We
Those
got
are
on the
the-
board at the right
that's good
time.
numbers.
Those are the types of
Cut
announcements
things.
we like.
Positive.
We like
Positive.
Hopefully we don't have to cut people.
It's good. And for the record, I did go back to Ms. Spurgeon's supplemental contracts, and they are all listed under Human Resources Licensed.
Yeah,
just looked.
I just
Oh, did
said
you do
that.
the same thing?
I just looked at it.
Wait,
I went back
you
too.
mean like I said they were?
Yeah.
Like you said. Didn't we all say that? Didn't we say that was what Julie said?
Julie's very smart.
That's all good.
I'm just saying they were not. This is a new
I
thing
don't know
that we
when it
list them like
changed.
this.
I'm gonna keep checking to see when it's changed, because now I'm curious.
It was on your
Thank you.
watch.
Probably
Thank you,
was.
Mr. President, for that.
All right, no, thank you. That was a great update. Appreciate it. No other public participation. So we don't have an executive tonight, so I will move that we adjourn.
Second. Bye-bye.
Discussion?
Yes. No.
Call the roll.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Yes.
Will you pass that to
The what?
The Tiffany.
No, it started at 6, didn't it?
Yeah, 6:45.
Are you gonna go to the city council thing?